$500. That's where this starts. Not with a milestone, not with a moment of clarity or a crisis or a decision that feels significant in the moment. Just $500 a month. The amount left over on your first real paycheck that doesn't have a name yet. At 22, after taxes, after rent, after utilities and groceries and transportation and the basic overhead of existing in a mid-sized American city, there's $500, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. But in that range, that's the pocket. That's where this lives. Two versions of the next 30 years begin from this exact point. Same income, same city, same starting balance, same $500 sitting there every month with no predetermined destination. The only variable is what happens to that $500. And the gap between the two outcomes, what that gap actually looks like at the other end, is large enough that when you see the number, the first instinct is to check the math. Not because the math is wrong. The math is straightforward, almost embarrassingly straightforward. But the conclusion feels disproportionate to the decision. It feels like a 30-year outcome should be attached to a 30-year decision, not to a bank transfer. That's the whole problem. Version A and version B don't look different at 22. They feel approximately equivalent. They feel like two defensible approaches to the same starting point from someone who just started earning real money and has earned the right to live a little. In the first year, and maybe the third, and possibly even the fifth, they produce lives that are nearly identical from the outside. The gap is quiet for a long time, and then, and this is the part worth paying attention to, it isn't. Subscribe and turn on notifications. What version B actually produces at 52, not just the number, but what the number changes about every decision you make for the rest of your life after that. That's where this is going. Version A, you spend it. Not recklessly. This is the critical detail that gets lost when people tell this story because reckless spending is easy to diagnose and easy to fix. Version A is not reckless. Version A is consistent, month after month, in ways that each make complete sense in isolation, in ways that feel proportional to where you are in your life. The apartment. The $900 a month place is technically fine. It's small, and the radiator makes a sound, and the neighbors play music on weekends. Those under $100 place is quieter, has better light, feels like it belongs to the version of yourself you're in the process of becoming. At 22, this doesn't feel like a $200 a month financial decision. It feels like a quality of life decision, a mental health decision, a reasonable investment in the environment where you're going to spend most of your time. Version A takes the $100 apartment, the dinners, 4 nights a week, average $18, sometimes more. Each one is a defensible choice. You worked late, you're meeting a friend, cooking at 9 p.m. is genuinely miserable, and you earn this. Together, they run about $280 a month. Version A keeps the dinners. The car. 3 years in, the old Honda is starting to feel like it belongs to a previous chapter. The lease on something newer is $340 a month. It's reliable, it's safe, it fits the image of the person you're building toward. Version A signs the lease, the subscriptions, streaming platforms, cloud storage, the gym membership you use 4 times a month but would miss if it was gone. Another $90, auto-renewing every month without friction. Version A keeps those too. None of these decisions are wrong. Every single one of them has a reason. That's exactly the problem. By 35, version A has $4,800 in savings. Emergency fund territory, technically, a detailed memory of a decade of reasonable choices, and no particular financial footing to stand on. No margin, no distance between income and lifestyle. One bad month away from a very familiar kind of stress. The rule, version A didn't fail. Version A never created space between what comes in and what goes out. And without that space, there's no compounding. There's just continuity. The same month, indefinitely forward. Version B, you automate the $500. That word, automate, is doing more work than it sounds like. Because the difference between version A and version B is not discipline. It's not willpower or some superior relationship with deferred gratification or a more evolved financial personality. The difference is a bank transfer that runs on the 5th of every month, whether or not you think about it, whether or not the market is doing something alarming, whether or not it feels like a good time. $500 into a low-cost index fund tracking the S&P 500. You don't check it weekly, you don't move it when the market drops. And the market drops. It drops in ways that feel genuinely unprecedented in the moment. 30%, 40%. News cycles that make it feel like the system is ending. Version B doesn't move. Version B keeps the transfer running. The S&P 500 has returned approximately 10% annually over every 30-year window in modern market history. Not a projection. Not a best-case scenario built from optimistic assumptions. The historical average across the good decades and the bad ones, the crashes and the recoveries, the years that felt impossible and the years that felt easy. Average conditions, extended, $500 a month from 22 to 52. At 10% annually, that compounds to $1.13 million. Read that again. $1,130,000 from $500 a month, from an amount so small that in year one it barely registered as a decision at all. Before my first 100,000, I ran these numbers and then ran them again because the conclusion felt wrong. It doesn't feel proportionate. $500 a month is a dinner and a car payment. It's the gap between the $900 apartment and the $100 apartment. It's 4 dinners out a week. The idea that that specific amount consistently redirected produces 7 figures in 3 decades, it feels like the math is lying. The math is not lying. Here's what $1.13 million actually means at 52. And this is the part that matters more than the number itself. Your mortgage becomes genuinely optional, not metaphorically, actually optional, in the sense that if your employer becomes difficult, the conversation you have with them comes from a different position. A layoff becomes an inconvenience rather than a catastrophe. Still disruptive, still real, but survivable without the specific kind of panic that changes your judgment. You negotiate differently. You make decisions from a different room than the one where fear is the primary input. The real asset isn't the $1.13 million. The real asset is the posture that comes with knowing the $1.13 million is there. Here's the uncomfortable part. I want to be honest about this because it's the thing that actually matters, and it's the thing most versions of this story leave out. The uncomfortable part is not the math. Everyone can do the math. You can run the numbers on a free calculator in under 4 minutes and confirm everything I just described. The uncomfortable part is that version A doesn't feel like a mistake when you're making it. At 22, automating $500 a month into an index fund feels abstract in a way that a dinner out does not. The dinner is immediate and concrete and present. It's a real experience happening tonight with someone you like at a place that's good. The transfer disappears into a number on a screen that you're not sure will be worth anything by the time you're old enough to need it. The apartment with better light is a decision you live inside every single day. The portfolio is a bet on a 30-year process that you won't see the results of until you're a version of yourself you haven't met yet. Version A feels like reasonable living. Version B feels like deferral. But, and this is the thing, the dinners were good. The apartment was comfortable. I'm not going to pretend otherwise or moralize at you about choices you haven't made yet. The experiences were real. The enjoyment was real. Every one of those $500 decisions in version A delivered exactly what it promised in the moment. Version A is not a story about self-deception. It's a story about incomplete information. Each decision in version A was assessed against its immediate alternatives, the cheaper apartment, the cooked dinner, the older car, not against the 30-year alternative that was invisible in the moment. The $500 going to dinner cannot feel like $1.13 million because $1.13 million doesn't exist yet. It only exists at the end of 30 years of a decision that felt, every single month, like just a bank transfer, and that gap between how these two paths feel in year 1 and what they produce in year 30, that's the actual problem. Not ignorance of the math, not lack of access to the numbers. The asymmetry between how a decision feels and what it weighs. $500. That's where this started. The amount on your first real paycheck that doesn't have a name yet? Version A gives it a name immediately. The name is dinner, the better apartment, the newer car, the subscriptions. The name makes sense. The name always makes sense. The name is defensible at any point in the month when you're making the choice. Version B leaves it unnamed for 30 years, and then it hands you back a number that changes which room you're in for every negotiation you make from that point forward. The machine doesn't ask which version you're running. It doesn't check. It doesn't send reminders. It doesn't care whether the decision felt reasonable. It just compounds. Quietly, patiently, for whoever shows up consistently. They compound. The capital compounds. The decisions compound. The distance between version A and version B compounds, 1 month at a time, until the gap is too wide to close in a single moment of clarity. The balance is $500. It always starts there.